people that haven't been participating. Well, for this meeting would be Robert and I. John is not able to attend; he has another commitment.
Okay.
But to go through and first do a poll as to your input or your thoughts about what you're finding in place, and then discuss that. If that doesn't take that much time, I thought it would be worthwhile to go through what we're doing for policies and procedures. Which, on one hand, I'm really pleased with the amount of work that we've got done, but I'm still kind of flabbergasted by it. Oh my goodness, the amount of stuff that's there. I'm so glad we've got a tool that's involved, because sending stuff back and forth as Word documents or sharing them on a central site that would be like Google or that would just have been insane. So, um, it's 3:05.
Yeah.
Wow.
Unless they forgot day and time.
Oh.
Well, I sent a reminder this morning.
I know.
You got a reminder. And well, would have got you your link.
Yes.
And one more now.
Yeah, there's Ruth coming in.
All right.
And when you get to the policies, you know, I'm always happy to review for spelling, grammar, punctuation.
Yep. Well, there's going to be a fair amount of stuff to go through, Geesh.
Yep. Well, I know how many policies there are for my other group, so.
I might just say I had trouble logging on. So that might be, I apologize for being late.
Was it the link wasn't working, or?
You're asking Miss Technology here.
Oh. Well, I know I made a point to minimize any changes with regards to the meeting other than update the text for the confirmation, because the last time we did that, it just made it horrible for people, where it was making some people re-register, and so changing time for that is just not a good thing to do. So, well, we can wait another, if we don't mind, yeah, we could wait until 3:10. In the meantime, if anybody has any input or thoughts, I guess one of the things maybe I should have thought to do is re-emphasize what my phone number for contact or anything like that is. But it is usually in most of my emails. So
yeah. I just wanted to say a little thing. I just wanted to say thank you to all of you for taking care of these bylaws and procedures. It's not, how do I say that? It's not always the most fun thing to do, but it needs to be done. And it's a lot of work that you've put into this. So this is why it's important that we come together and we look at this together and just see. I pay tribute to all those who worked so many hours getting this done. It's very, very important.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
A good foundation, something that we know we've been long overdue in terms of well, particularly with the policies and procedures. And there'll still be more work to do with them.
Yeah, we never actually had any policies and procedures before.
No.
Good thing and bad thing. Bad thing because it's a lot of work, but good thing is you don't have to edit, revise. You're starting from scratch.
I just couldn't believe all of it, because I'm looking at that go and I go, geez, there's so much work that needs to be done. And then one thing brings on another question to another thing, and it carries on. I didn't think it would get that complex, but it does.
Yeah. It's been an interesting exercise, and I've mentioned a couple times during the process that our experience with all this and the results, of course, might serve as a good a template, or at least a good story to share with our own members too, who may be facing similar issues in their own clan groups.
Mhm.
And it's important to care to that level about the different bylaws and so on. It's important.
Yeah. Well, I totally agree with you. And the only comment I'd add is that it adds legitimacy to the organization, and I truly commend those who have worked so hard on this project. It does lend gravitas to the organization, and I also commend both Bill and Joanne. I'm incredibly impressed with the outreach and the number of new members that have come on board over the last while.
That's Bill. That's Bill and his roadshow.
It is very impressive, I have to say. I'm surprised. I'm like, wow, good for you.
Oh, well,
Good for
thank
us.
you. It's bringing me some of the marketing experience, and you know, um, well, you've heard me say this before. I agree with the first time I heard this said was attributed to St. Augustine, but that people need to belong. People need hope. They need to be a sense of being useful for things, and of course they need to be loved. But the love stuff we can't take care of, but the belonging stuff definitely is I think something that is missing. And if you do not provide reasonable things for people to belong to, then they'll belong to stuff that just doesn't necessarily become nice. You know, not that I want to get into talking about the maggots,
Oh.
as I call them, but they'll belong to just the wrong things. And there's plenty of people out there that have no compunction, industries out there that have no compunction about monetizing that, right? I get people upset about saying, look, to those groups, or on Facebook, don't think of it as anything as other than you are money to them. You are a product to them. And that, yeah, they might want to make you feel like you belong, but it's only because it's enriching somebody, right? And not necessarily what's in your best interest. So we're going to take a different approach, of course. This is all to help the people who are going to belong. And looks like it's working based upon the numbers. So we're into 312. I think what we should do is get started. And as I was mentioning earlier on, what I wanted to do was first of all give each person the floor, and see if there's anything specific that they're seeing in the bylaws, and in the articles at this point that they want to talk about or need further explanation about. And certainly if there's something you can say, hey, you know what, we could do it better if we do this. All right. Just a couple of things of notes. One of the goals with what we were doing with the bylaws and the articles is following guidelines by the legal professionals of keep it thin, keep down the repetition. You don't put anything in that you can't cover with your policies and procedures, that you don't want to have regrets later on of having to go to membership and ask them for a change. Or you don't want to go and make a change in articles, because articles, you can't change your articles for free. That's at least $200 now. Not cheap, with in terms of our budget, but definitely not $200 that we want to be giving away. So that's one of the principles that we stuck to. So on that note, let's see, top left of the screen, Joanne. Any input with regards to bylaws and articles? Like how are they looking to you at this point?
Well, so far so good. I think I'd already put my comments when I sent them back, and I think you've already incorporated any of my comments since I sent them.
Okay. Okay.
I'm in a Zoom meeting right now, Mozilla. Can I call you back?
We'll wait for Ruth to
Yeah.
get back.
I was looking forward to hearing other people's comments
Yes, that would be wonderful, darling. Thank you so much.
for things I might have missed.
One of the shows I've been kind of binge watching is Massive Engineering Mistakes,
Ah,
and in a episode, a recent episode, one of the PhD people that are commenting about it says, you know, when you're trying something new, even the smartest people in the world aren't necessarily going to get it right, because of course they've gone and done things like you know, swivel to change the bottom of a building, for instance, to be over top of a church in downtown New York. And everything seemed to have been right, except an engineering student came along and said, oh, you know, when I do these calculations, those transverse girders that you put in, they're not going to work with the bolts. And the people went back and did the calculations and went, that's right. And this building could literally fall and take out 4 or 5 buildings. So they had to go and quietly go and change bolts to rivets and put reinforcement plates in. So as smart as they were, you know, something can change. And the issue was that they used wind calculations for face on the building based upon a normal building. But when you change where your bottom brace is on, transverse winds end up being your nemesis. They didn't think of it. So do we think we've got the bylaws perfect and right? Nope. But the philosophy was the more that we could offload and allow flexibility and adaptation in the policies and procedures, the better off we're going to be able to do in terms of better off we're going to be to adapt. So on that note, Stephen, you had your hand up, and I'm going to ask you to take over in terms of talking about what you think of the bylaws so far.
Well, I have to say, first of all, receiving those emails I was kind of like, whoa, one email after the next, and I had difficulties following at one point. I had to kind of reread and follow up. And it was very interesting because then one thing was said, and then another person said something else. And that really went into what I thought was right as well. So it's almost as if my questions were gradually answered as it went by and as it came down. And what I like the most is we didn't have any bylaws before. I mean, this document, what we have now, like you mentioned, it's not perfect, but it's a starting point. And that's what we need. We need somewhere to start, something to start with. And then gradually we'll just perfect it. We'll just, you know, I think doing the bulk of it now, you know, it's a lot now, but when we perfect certain things later, it's going to be less complicated at a later time, I think. So that's what we
sorry,
have to keep
Stephen,
in
we've
mind.
had bylaws since 2014.
Seriously?
Seriously, 2013
Yeah.
actually.
Like,
And
Yes.
and they've been up on
Shame
the
on me.
website,
Yes,
but they were kind of begged, borrowed, and inherited.
they were.
Yeah.
We actually had something right from the beginning of the organization in 79 for sure. And then we modified them under the not-for-profit when it act came in. And we had to vote on them in November of 2013 because we had to have them right for October of 14. So we
Right.
had to vote on them early. So it was the fall of 13 that we voted on our current bylaws. So we've had them since the beginning. But because it was a hodgepodge, we put together pieces from other people's bylaws and we pick and chose. They did get redundant in places, contradictory in places, too wordy, and things were in the bylaws that should be out and in policies. So that's why we're redoing them.
But it's really a good idea. And, you know, we were really asked, like, what do you think of this and what do you think of that? And can you give us your input? So this is really, really great. It's important to get everyone involved as much as we can, right? So I'm very
Exactly.
sorry if I was a little late in my replies at times and so on. It's like a lot happening at my end, but I'm with you and I'm with you every step of the way. And that's why I'm here as well today, right?
Good.
And I'm very, very proud of all of you and the work that you've done on this. Just like Ruth was saying, it adds a lot of professionalism to the organization. and I'm very, very proud of all this. Really, it's really nice.
Oh, thank you.
The only, if I may just add on.
Well, Ruth, I was going to ask you to let us know what perspective you've had so far, and go ahead.
Well, I don't have any substantive recommendations or changes. I think that what I read, actually, I will confess, a few days ago, it seemed to me very well organized, logical in its sequence. The only other substantive comment I will add is that, as you started saying before, this is a dynamic process. The organization has changed enormously over the years, and I certainly tip my hat to Joanne. I remember being on the board probably before you were born, Bill. And
Oh my!
Oh, I don't know. Geesh, I'm older than people think. I'm in my 72nd year. I'm going to be 72 pretty soon.
oh, you sweet young thing. Anyway,
Yes. Yes.
no, it's a dynamic process, and I did read them. I had absolutely, I do have constantly a pen in my hand, and I did not have any substantive changes or recommendations. It is a huge process. I noted the evolution of the bylaws and all the regulations, and I commend you. I actually have absolutely nothing substantive to add.
Oh, well, thank you.
It was John and Ruth, John and Bill and Robert who did all these bylaws. I did the final spelling, grammar, punctuation check and layout. They did all the work.
Aren't you glad you've got a teacher in your midst?
An old-fashioned
Yeah.
spelling and grammar person, yeah.
Yeah, Joanne and I belong to another group, and in a recent conversation, we were even talking about cursive writing.
Yes, let's have cursive writing because it makes bigger and better brains. Sorry, kids.
Yeah. Anyway.
That's the way it works. Lorraine, one, I'm going to ask you am I pronouncing your name correctly? Two, are you able to talk to us? Which means I am going to.
Don't hear anything.
I'm going to go to the chat.
Don't see anything in the chat.
I'm not seeing anything in the chat either. Okay. Well, there's always the opportunity to provide input by mail. What I can do is add something to what you've said, Ruth, because one of the things we did was we looked at the existing bylaws, and I went to go and change the existing ones is going to be an enormous amount of work. Originally, we had thought back last year of making a little bit of a change and then making another change and then making another change, which probably would have been a very brutal and torturous exercise. When we went to look to say, let's fix these up all in one fell swoop, it became obvious that there was just too much to be done. So what I did was I went to the not-for-profit ministry site and said, they've got a bylaw builder. So I said, well, let's use this. And actually went through and put in input according to what we would want. And then took what came out and made minor tuning to it, right? That gave us a great start, but it also gave us something that I thought was very important, which was talk about the things that they want to talk about in the terms that they want to use, and try to keep no more, no less than what they're saying, because if they're providing it in their tool to build bylaws, then it should be important if we want to put it in their way. Because one of the goals is our process is going to be having the membership approve the bylaws, which takes 2/3 of the people who show up to approve. Then we have to take those and turn them over to the government and say, this is what we want. These are our new articles. Here's the new bylaws that we want. And it has to be something that fits with them. And that's the role of our legal counsel, is to say, no, you're going to have to say it this way, which we've done. We're basically at the point where, with the exception that we removed a subclass, is what the lawyer had basically signed off on, right? Speaking of the fact that we removed the subclass, we have pulled stuff back, because what we were trying to do was emphasize the input of the young, the associates, and we thrashed around with getting a name, and finally we settled on associate. And we were going to have the associate member, the delegates, etc. But it just added complications to it. And that was one of the areas where we said, well, what we can do is at least recognize the associates exist, with having the associate vice chair, and have that into the bylaws. But the rest of it is done in policies and procedures, right? It pulled at me a bit, because I really wanted to have the aspect of getting the young involved in sustainability, try to enforce that as much as possible. I wanted it to be as visible as possible, but it just made it a challenge in the bylaws to do that. So we took those out, and it's going to be handled in policies and procedures. Now, that doesn't mean that someday in the future that can't change, right? But we've got the mechanisms to be able to do all of those things that we want to end up doing through the policies and procedures, and emphasizing, because it is in the bylaws, that we have to do the policies and procedures. And if we don't, somebody can call us up on it and say, Mr. Directorate of the Charities, the Charity Directorate, or whoever it is, these guys aren't doing their job, right? Slap them on the wrist or do worse. So it's a compromise. I think we're in pretty good shape with regards to it, though. So go ahead, Ruth.
Yeah, it's just a question about the infrastructure upon which the revisions have been made, Bill. So am I to understand, I didn't know that there was an Ontario government website that was directed towards non-profit organizations. So is that the infrastructure upon which?
No, it's in fact there is an Ontario government one, but I don't know if they have a builder or not. We use the federal charter. We are a federal organization.
Oh, the federal charter. I understand.
So if you type in not-for-profit bylaw builder, that'll take you to that site.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that's very useful, because it certainly gives the parameters under which any organization should they should adhere to those different articles.
Now, there's another thing that I'll be blunt about I'll fess up about using. There's a lot of different resources for things like the policies and procedures out there. And you can go and you can dig, you can go to the websites, you can go and do a query in Google and ask about those things. Or you can do what I've done for some of them, which is just go to both ChatGPT and DeepSeek and say, hey, I am a not-for-profit, federally chartered organization, and I would like a policy on, what was it? One of the ones, Robert, that I did. And it just came back fantastic.
It wasn't the expense one, was it?
Was it? No, you know what it was? It was borrowing powers.
Well, mhm.
and it came up with stuff that I just went, wait a minute. Obviously, you need to be saying this, but I wouldn't have thought of it
Hmm.
unless I had gone and dug through a whole bunch of stuff. So it's been a very good resource with regards to that. I don't know if I've told people this. I don't like the term artificial intelligence. It's augmented intelligence. And to me, we're in the same situation as other technology that had come in, right? I'm sure there were people that said, no, I'll never use fax machines. I won't use email. I won't use websites. You know what the bankers said when the phones showed up? I know none of us were around for that, but I know the story. The bankers said, why do we need telephones? We will never use them. We have all the messenger boys that we require, and they do a great job. The bankers actually said that. So
bring back the carrier pigeon and quill and papyrus.
Yes. Yeah, and that to me is the same thing as using augmented intelligence, right? It just makes so much sense. Well, why don't I do this? Is there anybody any other questions or input that we should be dealing with at this point?
No.
So then why don't I jump to looking at the policies and procedures site that we have in place, if that's okay with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm going to bracket this a bit. We currently run on a old version of a content management system for scotscanada.ca. It's been nagging me for the past year to say, you got to upgrade, you got to upgrade, you got to upgrade. It's now at the point where we have to go up 2 levels. And that is what I'm using for this documentation site. It's really nice because when you edit an article, like a bylaw policy, like a policy or something like that, it lets you keep versions of it. So if you're not happy with what you did, you can just go back to the other version. You can do a comparison. You can preview a version. You can say what changed, which to me, I think is a great tool. And that is the site that we're going to end up going to. So I'm going to share that. Oh, here we've got an input from, I'm going to stop first. We have an input from Lorraine. And can everybody see that in the chat? Mm-hmm. Oh, all right. So she's telling us that she wanted to learn about the issues and concerns for Scots Canada. She's impressed with the thoroughness of the material for the bylaws, and she supports anything that includes the inclusion of the younger people in the mission and objectives. But she's not sure why the technology is not working. Well, because it's technology, and there was those programmers involved at some point. That's why. Thank you very much for the input, Lorraine. All right, so let's do the share. And what I can do is there's the screen. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that it's a reasonable size for all the people that might be seeing the screen. Is this okay? Too big? I can't hear you, Joanne.
We're not seeing it.
Don't see it.
Better, it could be bigger.
Don't see it.
Can you
Well, we
see?
see, I
if you
see
show-
black.
If you show an article, it'd be easier to know.
Yeah, all right. Well, what I'll do is log in. I've expanded it, so it's giving me this kind of setup here. All right, let's see. So what we've done is we've gone and just had a little category, a 3-category blog, so it's easy to find things like definitions, right? When you first log in, if you logged in as the member using the password reviewer, um, you'll see these three things here. What I can do is enlarge them. Is that better, Joanne? I can't hear you though. Joanne, you're muted.
Yes, thank you. It's getting better.
All right. Well, see, I have a screen that is probably what, 1, 2, 3.5, close to 3.5 feet wide. So this only takes up a minor portion of it, but how is that? I still can't hear you,
we,
Joanne.
we see all your tabs at the top.
We're just seeing the headings and the black and white.
Yeah.
Well, that's all it is in.
Okay.
So
And
if
I
go,
see all your tabs at the top.
yep. I got tons of stuff. Well, those are also, I got to go back and look at stuff. So
Okay.
outstanding issues like how to change a hard disk from an old machine to a new machine. That's what the first tab is. But you see these things up there, right? I don't know. I don't.
No,
So
we're
do
good.
you have
Bill.
your microphone on?
Yeah, what? Yeah, I have my microphone on.
Okay.
It's fine, Bill. We can tell there's 49
right.
bylaws and
All right. So if you go into policies and procedures, what would be really interesting right now for us to go through is the tracking sheet. So you see how we have a list of all these policies that we're working on or we've got done already. The tracking sheet, though, actually tells you that, you know, where we are with regards to those. So we've got a policy overview of board responsibilities and roles. And you can see that we say, yes, it needs a policy. If there's a bylaw that is directly associated to it, you'll see a number on the left. And these things are linkable. So this is a way for us to keep track of what needs to have policies, where we are. Is the policy been written? Is it in a draft? Which means that really we need to review it. We need to have a look at it. Robert, John, and I need to look at it and say, yeah, we're happy enough with it. Let's send it off to the board to review. So we've got tracking. Here's ones that, for instance, let's look at one, for instance, that we went out and got some help from the augmented intelligence with, and that would be borrowing powers. So you see that now, borrowing powers?
Right.
Right.
Yes.
And it gave lots. So you see, I mean, it's an enormous amount of material here that was generated, and we just needed to go through and say, yeah, that makes sense. CRA compliance, that we shall not borrow funds for non-charitable purposes or provide financial benefits, etc. A lot of details in this. Now, some of the other ones, such as, I have these open in different tabs. If we look at something like execution of documents, that's a smaller one. And you can see we've said, well, here's some rules with regards to how contracts could be signed, what are expenditures that could be. We've got an upper and lower. We need to put in some things maybe about what the upper and lower limits in that are, right? The other thing that we've done, though, is made it so that if you go and look at a policy like this, execution of documents, and you want to see what the associated bylaw is, you can click that button.
Wow.
And that takes you to the bylaw. If you're looking at the bylaw and you want to see the policy, click the policy button. It's there, right? So definitely this is a place where we can get Joanne to go through and cross the T's and dot the I's and look at some of the things. It has because of the authority that I log in with, I can actually go and edit an article and change the content with a good editor. if
That-
I wanted to see that something changed.
That's
you see
much
that?
better. I much prefer the white screen with the black print on it. I find it very hard to see print on a black screen.
I agree.
Well, I did have a way to change from light template to dark template, but I kept breaking it. So I said, look, for the purpose of getting this done, I'll just use the dark template, and we'll figure it out in the actual site, a better way of doing it.
Okay.
But as I was saying, one of the reasons to go to this new version of the software to use this was because what we're currently using for the Scots of Canada site does not have this, which is I can look and see, oh, this was first done by me, and then John made some changes, and here's some additional changes John made, and here's a change I made. So here's the version that we're currently using. I can go back to the version that was there before. You can actually look at it and say, well, what is that? What was that? And it will show me what the previous version was. I can also ask it to compare for two versions, say the current one and this one. I can say, well, what changed? And it will show me in HTML, oh, here's the difference in the intro text that was changed.
Where is it opening?
It's opening up as another window. Can you guys see that?
No.
Oh, you can't. Okay, so sorry. It's opening it up as a dialog box. Sorry. I thought it would let you see it. Can you see the version box?
Yes.
Okay. Well, when I click compare, it opens up another little dialogue, but that's not coming across in Zoom, unfortunately.
No.
Right. Anyways, it's a great tool to allow us to maintain versions. And if I said, you know what, I don't like that last change that was done, I can actually go to a previous one and restore it, which comes in really handy when you've gone and said, yeah, I know it's 2 o'clock in the morning, but I'm still got awake enough and I can make some changes, and you really screw it up. Or you wake up in the morning and go, what was I thinking?
If you restore one, Bill, the one that used to be the current one, is it still there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, the version is still there. You're just going to end up setting which one is the default.
Promoting the other one.
Yeah. Yeah. So you could go and actually work on a version that you want to implement it at a particular time, and not make it the default, not make it what's there. Then when you want to implement it, you can do that. So, and this is kind of a WYSIWYG editor. So if I wanted to go through and say, well, I want to make sure that this stands out there, I can make board of directors in bulk, in bold, lots of nice things. Of course, we want to make sure CRA is in bold. And when I save that, you can see that those are now bold in the text. So it's not a bad editor. It lets you do lots of interesting things. It definitely allows us. What was one of the last ones I was working on? I was working on term of office for directors. Does this have the? It allows you to do bullets. Allows you to do. What's the term that I'm missing? Let's see. If I go to here.
Formatting, is that the term?
Well, allows you to do. I can take. So these ones here, you can see. I can actually. Let's go and edit this, and I can actually say that I want these to be. I want this to be. I want this to be a numbered list.
Bulleted.
There you go. So I can change that to be a numbered list. That's one of the nice things about it. I can change to numbered lists for indenting and formatting. And of course, doing hyperlinks is pretty simple in it. Right? If I go back to that and well, here, I can do this. Let's edit this. And I'm going to highlight this. See how do you see a pop-up?
Mhm. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's a little pop-up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, well, I want to make that a hyperlink. I'm going to go here, ask what the link is for that, copy the link address, and I'm going to go back here. I'm going to go to, I'll re-highlight that again, click here, and I'm going to say, there's the link for it, open it in current window, save. There, I save the link, I save the article. Now what I've done is I've put in a link so that if you click that, it goes to membership committee. It's really fast. Go ahead, Robert.
Sorry,
Robert, you have your hand up?
unmute myself here. I was just going to make the point that you know, when we were looking at the long list of policies there, what we've tried to do is cover off most of the essential policies that a group like ours should have in place. This is by no means all of them, though, because as time goes on, something new may come up and we may decide that we need to create yet another policy. So it's kind of a fluid set of documents in that sense, but we're covering off the essentials that way. And of course, as we know, it doesn't require going to the membership for a change of a policy the way it would with the bylaws. So it's a very good set of operating guidelines for any of us sitting on the board of the organization, and for members for that matter, to know how and why we make decisions the way we do. So just wanted to make that comment.
Yep. Yeah. Well, what we haven't done, Robert, is this is something we have to think about. What's going to be the best way to do that? Because we're putting a little bit of procedures into some of these, but there's going to be stuff that's going to be straightforward procedure. And should it be here or should it be in another category? I'm not sure. But exactly what you're saying, because like when I went in to look and work on membership conditions, my brain went, you know what? You're going to have the thing for committee, and you're going to have this thing for organization members and household delegate members and household members, and it's going to be 50 miles long. That would be nuts. So we can go and add. So I literally, there's not a bylaw 10A. This just says that this is 10A policy connected to membership conditions. So we can just add additional sub policies or policies connected to these. And that's all that does. And that we can do. And when we get to the point of actually setting up stuff as procedures, for instance, an onboarding procedure, we know we want to have a good onboarding procedure for directors. We want to have a good onboarding procedure for the stuff that ends up happening when an organization member joins, because now it's like collect their information, get their logo and crest, set them up in the Word document for the poster, set them up on the website as an English article, as a French article, go to the menus and add them as a menu for French articles and whatever, and so on. So there's a whole bunch of things that I've got in my head that need to be put down as a procedure. And that maybe that's another category that we want to set up. Just have policies and then procedures. I don't know. We'll get to that. You know, operations guides. Right? I think as long as we're able to jump around from the bylaw to the policy to the procedure to the policy, etc. As long as we've got good ways of clicking or back and forth to see those things, and not having to repeat stuff in different areas. That gives us great strength with something like this. Right? It's certainly better than the initial attempts I made at using a Wikipedia tool, which was just, I couldn't even understand it that well. So, does anybody want to see anything in particular?
Can I just ask a question? What is this website, by the way? I'm just curious because it's obviously an incredibly sophisticated model.
No, this is a content management system in a domain name that I inherited from. I had business partners a number of years ago, and unfortunately they passed away. And one of the names that was left with me was personification. And I've just kept the name, and I just installed the software myself on it. This is Joomla version 5. The template that I'm using, which basically we're not using any of it, is called Space, and I picked it because it's empty. But this is a content management system, and actually I could give you a little look at underneath the covers with it. This is the back end, and it's what you really want to use as a modern tool. So when you go to something like Wix or one of these other sites that let you build things, they're basically providing you with a cut-out version of what I've got here. So this is the back end of the site. The internals, and I can go and actually list all the articles that I've got. There's the menus. I can define what the menus are that we use, and there's other components that could be put in. I always end up installing a backup tool right away because it's easy to make a mistake. You can manage the users. If I go to users, you can see the users. There's director John Duff, member, which is the user that I sent, Robert, Sylvie, and myself. And all of what gets displayed is driven by templates, which is basically the skin for displaying stuff. And I just picked a simple template called Space. J.A. Spy.
I usually go in if French is required, and I just paste the equivalent French text. Generate it first, then correct it, because I'm not going to write everything from scratch. It's too hard, right, Stephen? It's just get something to translate it, and then you review it.
That's exactly what I do. Generally, it goes faster.
Yeah.
I don't remember if in this site, I think in this site, okay. So when I implemented this, I did not turn on language as an option. But the idea of going to this though was that we were going to update the Scots of Canada website to this version of Joomla with a different template. And when we implement that, we will have French and English, like we have with Scots of Canada, right, with any of the articles. And that's what gives us the power that when we go to see somebody like, we can go and see, let's see, Mr. Logan, let's look at your site. If we go there, and I want to see that in French, I can click the French button up on top, and there's a French version of the site.
C'est magnifique. C'est magique.
Yeah. It's so nice to be able to just have it so that behind the covers, we just create articles that are in French and English, right? Now, there's a lot that needs to be done in the French, which when we migrate, we're going to end up fix up, because there's a lot of things that I have said, I can't do the French version. There's just not enough time. And we'll end up doing that with Here, let me get out of this because otherwise I'm going to end up locking it up. This is one of the other nice things too, is that when you go and edit an article in any of the ways, it will say it's checked out. So somebody can't go and start making changes and people will lose their work. That's one of the nice things about this as well. So it is powerful using the capabilities of that Joomla content management system that's back there. And it's just amazing the amount of stuff that we can get done on it. Right. This table, I started off in Excel, and I just imported it in. Right. I just pulled the table in. Because you can have tables in the system. I could add rows and do all kinds of stuff.
Bill,
Yes.
I'm seeing there's an enormous amount of work to be done. Are you leaving that to just the three of you, or are you going to recruit more contributors?
Well, definitely there's stuff that maybe isn't that hard to do. I would say you know where the hard work is? When we've got to make decisions about things. Here's one thing. Here's a place where I think there's more work to be done, and it's a challenging work. Some of it is we don't have any idea because we've never had committees. We've only had one committee so far. That's John and Robert and I, the bylaw committee. We've never had a committee, so we're kind of starting from scratch. But again, that might be something. I think John had pulled in some stuff from, or we did some research earlier on, but there's some stuff that we'll have to go and do some research on, and maybe that's something that we'll use the augmented, augmented intelligence for. Like if I go into here, can people see that? This is deep sea. I can say, oh, let's do a little demo of that. Let's see how well it does. I need a policy for committees of the board of directors. Yeah, I'm getting there. And when you're doing any queries in AI, it's the same as doing a query in Google or doing a survey. Be specific. So here I'm just going to say committees of the board of directors for a Canadian federal charity. Let's ask it. Let's see how it does.
It's definitely faster than our committee would be.
Well, okay. Who knew about ad hoc? I didn't know about ad hoc. That you classify committees as being standing or ad hoc.
Yeah.
So I would have had to get that from somebody else, or do the research. But this is what I'm saying. This is augmented intelligence, right? Like I can even do something weird like this. Please format this into HTML for me to import into an online article. Is anybody a skeptic at this point?
if this is for my personal knowledge, if I use WordPress, do I need to know HTML or no?
Well, if you want to end up doing the formatting underneath the covers, like I could copy stuff and then trust it, right?
I wish you could ask it my winning numbers for the lottery. I could use some help right now.
Well, we could ask it, what are the numbers that usually win? I'm sure it could tell us.
So you see what it's doing. It's actually producing all of this in HTML. So there you go. I'm going to copy this. I don't need,
Stephen, we're starting to use it at work, but it's a lot of gymnastic because you don't want it to know who you are and put in anything that, would point to
let's go back
whatever
to this.
specific about your business, but we're asking it to optimize our code or code stuff that we're too lazy to do now.
Yeah.
Because it already exists somewhere.
Yeah.
Right? No need to reinvent the wheel. Oh, look at that.
There's all the HTML that it gave me. That's it does some weird things sometimes in terms of using what it said in terms of using. So can you mute yourself? There you go. So there, I just had an AI generate the code, generate and tell me, give me information on, and then give me the HTML. That's why I call it augmented intelligence. So I'm building an AI training course that I'll be delivering to down in Trinidad and Barbados by the looks of it. But certainly parts of that I'm going to offer to provide to the members of CASIC or Scots of Canada to say, here's how to bootstrap on this. Bootstrap yourself on this. So what did you guys think about that little demo of DeepSeek? And it doesn't matter. You can use DeepSeek or ChatGPT or any of the other ones. Go ahead, Ruth.
Yeah, that was my question. I'm a little bit nervous about DeepSeek in view of the security issues, but I'm not so sure that they're any different from ChatGPT.
Yeah. Well, would you trust? Who do you trust nowadays? The Americans or the Chinese?
Well,
For me, it's a pretty close toss-up. Hey, in fact, I think with the Chinese, it's going to take slower to get to the Russians than it is with the Americans by the looks of it.
well, yeah, that is my question. Which is more reliable, which is safer, the ChatGPT, which I do use. I have not used the DeepSeek because of the information that's available about it and the warnings given thus far.
Well, there's boogeyman stuff, and I mean, the boogeyman stuff is showing up with regards to AI completely. I just did a thing on a replied to somebody that asked me to basically kind of do an investigation about the use of AI being used for fraud for a crypto thing that was going around down in the Caribbean. And I pointed out that no, there wasn't any AI. The news reporter just used it because it sold the story for them and turned it into a boogeyman. And that's the same thing that's happening with DeepSeek. So for something like this, like what I just asked DeepSeek to do, should I be worried about any information that I gave it or that it's provided back? It doesn't matter. I mean, it's Canada not for profit.
That's what I was going to jump in with too. It's the kinds of things that we're using it for. This is essentially going to be public information anyway in the end for us. So I don't think we have any great concerns about it at this point, but I suppose if you were using augmented intelligence for something, you know, more personal or financial or something along those lines,
Yeah.
it would be more of an issue probably. But and as far as the word artificial intelligence, in my view, it's I think I'll buy Bill's explanation and go with the augmented for now. It's only when it becomes self-aware and changes its name to Skynet, for those who know the Terminator movies, that we should become concerned. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, my technician actually for ages has had his phone, the voice on his phone has Hal. And it's creeping me out a